Welcome to the Down There Where podcast. I'm Amy Milne. This is the show where we get loud about women's below-the-belt health from menstruation to menopause and everything in between. So many women continue to silently endure issues like endometriosis, PCOS, menstrual disorders, and menopause-related challenges without the proper support. We're done with the whispers. We're here to break the taboos, share the stories, and have the conversations no matter how uncomfortable. Whether you're dealing with your own health journey, supporting someone who is, or just ready to join the movement, you're in the right place. Let's get loud. Okay, can we talk about the fact that 84% of women have pelvic floor symptoms, and most of them have never once seen a pelvic health physiotherapist? Not because the care doesn't exist, not because it doesn't work, but because nobody told them they needed it. Nobody told them it was covered by their benefits. Nobody told them it was even an option. That ends today. My guest, Melanie Sutherland, CEO and founder of Bodyco Health and Wellness, a 7-figure multidisciplinary clinic in Toronto built specifically for women who are done settling for rushed 5-minute appointments and zero answers. Melanie is a recognized pelvic health and perinatal physiotherapist, a clinical mentor, a speaker, and a coach to health entrepreneurs across Canada and the US who want to build the kind of practices women actually deserve. She built Bodyco because she lived the problem herself, and what she built is exactly what so many of us have been desperately looking for, a place where the whole picture matters, where you actually get heard, and where the standard isn't just acceptable, it's excellent. In this episode, we're going below the belt. Literally, we're talking about what pelvic health actually is, why perimenopause is hitting an entire generation of women who were never prepared for it, why your kegels might actually be making things worse, and why common does not mean you have to live with it. This is the conversation I wish someone handed me 20 years ago, and I think it might be yours too. This is the Down There Where podcast. I'm Amy Milne. Let's get loud. I am so excited to welcome Melanie to the show. Melanie, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you here. And in a moment, I'll have you introduce yourself to everybody who's listening. We had the pleasure of meeting and traveling together.
Yes.
Crazy, probably 6 years probably now. It was probably ahead of.
I think you're optimistic.
Yeah, we're just going to go with that.
Longer than that.
Isn't everything just 5 years ago though, because of
Right.
the blank in time and raising
Everything's
children
5 years ago,
yeah.
and I'm still 35.
Exactly. We had the opportunity to go to South Carolina and see Rachel Hollis, and one of her first we had a blast. And so that's
Yeah.
where you and I first met.
Yeah.
And I got to learn all about you and what you do. And so I know a bit about you, but our listeners don't. So please introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hi. Thank you. I'm so excited. I'm so excited that you're doing this. I'm so
Thank you.
excited that you are shining a light on these conversations. As you mentioned, my name is Melanie Sutherland. I am the CEO and founder of Bodyco Health and Wellness in Toronto, which is a multidisciplinary clinic, essentially founded to supporting really busy women and their families.
Mhm.
Life imitates or business imitates life,
Yep.
I guess. As I was starting my family, etc., I was so frustrated by how difficult it was to get collaborative,
Mm.
evidence-based care, both for myself and my family. And like so many women out there, probably what happened is I became obsessed with making sure my little humans had the best. And that
Mhm.
meant that my health needs went out the door. And a lot of that I found was largely because when you're going here, when you're going there, and nobody's talking to each other, like you just run out of time and energy.
Mhm.
So our whole goal, knowing that women are the chief health decision makers for
Mhm.
families, is that if we can elevate the health and wellness of women and actually make that simple and make that convenient for them so they'll actually do it,
Mhm.
then we elevate the health and wellness of families in totality and within our communities. So I have been plugging away at that for 12 years. We've got an incredible team.
Mhm.
And yeah, that's sort of where I am professionally. I support other businesses across Canada and the
Mhm.
US to do the same thing through some business mentorship, but that's my passion. That's what I do.
And you're based in Toronto, correct?
We are in
Yeah.
Toronto. We support businesses across Canada and the
Yeah.
US through business mentorship. Um, but yeah, the physical clinic and the stellar group of humans that I have working for me, we're located in Toronto's West End near High Park.
Yeah. I I was I was intrigued by you the moment I got to invest a weekend with you, and it was an incredible group of women that we were with, and it was a ton of fun. And I just th- it was it was always memorable for me that you were so interested in advocating for others through, like, you just didn't want to open a clinic. You just, like, when you spoke of the business you were in, I was always touched by the fact that it was more than just a business. And watching everything that you're doing on social and just what you're doing and how you're advocating for women is unmatched in my opinion. And so I'm so
Mhm.
grateful you're doing what you're doing. And I think, simple and convenient is do we even know those words as women? We should. I mean, that's what we're trying to
No.
achieve. And,
Yeah.
simple and convenient is not how I would describe the healthcare system for women currently or ever.
No.
And
No.
definitely currently.
Yeah, the healthcare system is wildly complex. A lot of it was built around servicing like emergency situations, and a
Hmm.
lot of it was built on keeping men well. Like, if we're
Hmm.
really honest about it, we talk about there's this huge lack of research for women. So, how do you build a healthcare system around something that you haven't thoroughly researched, right?
Hmm.
We are outliers. We were actively removed from research because we would mess up the data. Like, God
Yep.
forbid, like our periods messed up the data. And so, I think, there's still an old narrative, no matter how progressive we've become, that old narrative still underlies things. And like I said, like the development of the clinic was purely selfish.
Hmm.
It's like what I wish I had when I was going through that time when my kids were little and time was at the premium. And it continues to evolve with that and how my health has changed over the years and
Hmm.
what my priorities are. And like, I wish I could say to you 12 years after starting this that we've made this like real dent. And I think we do support the women in our community well.
Hmm.
But like, God, like there's so much more to do. And I'm still learning all this stuff. And yeah, it's really it's selfish, which is great for me. But it really shines a light on all the work that's yet to do for women in healthcare.
And I think it's all of us coming together, like with what I'm doing in my small part of the world, what you're doing in your small part of the world, and collectively sharing what we're doing, because someone is going to listen to this and be like, oh, I'm going to take a look at how Melanie's running her clinic, and maybe I can add some things, from a business perspective and growth and knowledge. And then also from the I'm a woman and I need, complete care. And it's funny, when I met you and you talked about pelvic health, I was like, yeah, that's great. And I learned a little bit about it. And then I went on living through my, like, horrific perimenopause that I didn't know I was in, and my endless continuation of endometriosis that didn't go away after I had babies. And it wasn't until about 6 months ago that I went, pelvic health, I should call someone. And then realized that it was covered under benefits. Like, this felt like a beam of light. I was like, how did I not know this? And so talk to me about what you're doing in this space and how important it is for women. And I know that we're in the perimenopause space, like, excuse me, you were talking about how,
Mhm.
like, we've done really well with ourselves as women getting us to babies. Those of us who can carry to term, we're well informed. There's a billion books, and then there's all of a sudden you hit this, like, 35-year-old stage, and we're like, what the fuck is happening?
Right? Yeah, doesn't that statement just sum up so much? Like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah, pretty much.
Um, yeah, so I think when I first started in pelvic health, It wasn't because I had a keen interest in pelvic health. Like, let me tell you, like, I had no interest in spending my day down there with all
Right.
these women, right?
Yeah.
My mom's a nurse, and I was like, I am not doing anything from the bottom of the rib cage to the top of the knees. Like,
Right.
my origins are actually in sport medicine,
Mhm.
but I think so much of women's health, and you've just kind of echoed that in your stories, like, you don't know until you're in the thick of it.
Mhm.
So when I started in pelvic health, it was all around the prenatal stuff, and ironically, I had all these life experiences that didn't even dawn on me as a physiotherapist that may have an impact on pelvic health, and so when I went into training, which was purely because I was referring out so often, and I was like, "This isn't good for the business, like, we should really have somebody in-house that can do this," and my total attitude was, "I'm gonna take one for the team." Like, I will that's what I thought about it.
Yeah.
This part of healthcare sucks, but I'm gonna take it for the team and learn how to do this because there seems to be a market for it.
Right.
So I'll never forget the instructor who's this, like, world-renowned educator and expert in pelvic health. So I should preface this by saying when you learn about pelvic health, and is what makes me really interesting at cocktail parties. When you learn about pelvic health, like, it's actually not ethical to practice on models, and you need to know what it feels like. So
Right.
we practice on each other. That's how we learn,
Ah, there we
which
go.
I do appreciate
Yep.
now that, like, I know what the feeling of that is like, and I feel
Mhm.
better equipped to speak to a patient about that.
Right.
So she was actually doing a demonstration where I was the model, and I was so cocky. I was like, "I'm in good shape. My pelvic health is great." Like forgetting about all this stuff that had gone on. And she's like, "Whenever you're ready, contract your pelvic floor." And I was like, "Yeah, it's going. Like, is it rock hard? Like, am I breaking your fingers?" And she's like, "No, seriously. Like, whenever you're ready, go ahead." And I was so embarrassed. Like, I thought I was killing it. I thought I was the Olympian of pelvic floors, and, like,
Oh
I
my
didn't
god,
even
that's the
know
best.
how to activate it. And so I got a really big dose of humble pie, um, and it shone this light on, like, "Oh my god, like, if I don't know how to do this, and
Right.
I think I've been teaching women how to do this, like, we've got this all wrong." So, fast forward to getting that certification, I've been talking to moms groups for years. When I first went into those, like, and I'd say, "Who's had experience with pelvic floor?" You'd get that one brave soul who put their hand up. And now when I talk to those mom groups, like, the whole room whips their hand
Aw,
up,
I love
which
that.
is amazing to me, and they're going proactively.
Mm.
And so, while I still know that there's a lot of great work to be done around pregnancy and postnatal, from a
Mhm.
pelvic floor perspective, I feel like we have a bigger stake in the game there. People understand it there.
Agreed.
But now when I talk to people, the conversation has shifted to that whole generation of women, the ones who thought they were great at accessing their pelvic floor and had never thought about it before. All of those women who didn't necessarily do it through pregnancy are now hitting perimenopause.
Mhm.
And we know just because of the anatomy and physiology of perimenopause and the substantial impact that the decline in estrogen specifically has on the pelvic floor, on the whole genitourinary system, all of a sudden their symptoms are coming back.
Mm.
And this is not a generation. The information is better than it was before, but like they're not used to this conversation yet. So we're really back to educating people just at a different stage of life around why this is important and why it isn't something to be brushed under the rug.
Yeah, like, I have friends well, like I said, I mean, I've spent my whole life basically in stirrups having people tell me something or other, and I would, like but went that side, but never went somewhere, didn't know I could go somewhere to get better health. I was just kinda like, I guess my vagina's dead. Like, I guess there's, like, nothing I can do there, right? Like, everybody's told me everything inside is sucks, and even then, having had a hysterectomy was like,
Mhm.
is there anything I can really do down there anymore? Yet there's tons, and so, you
Tons.
know, like, I'm now seeing someone up north here who it's similar. I was like, I can do this. And she's like, no, you don't, not at all. And I'm like, I can't feel anything down there. And so it's like this whole rewiring. But I'm watching so many of my friends like cross their legs when they have to sneeze, how when they bounce or run, they're like peeing and there's just, or they're in pain or they're just, I'm saying pelvic health and they're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, go.
Mm,
Like in
no.
my mind, I like literally want to wear a t-shirt that says everybody needs to go see one. Like,
Yeah, it's I don't know why it's not more mainstream in
mm,
terms of who we think about on our healthcare team. When we
right.
look to European cultures, for example, like France, when you have a baby, you get 12 paid pelvic health appointments afterwards. So, like,
Wow.
those women have grown up with that's just part of their health team. They've had that experience. So, when they
Right.
start to recognize those symptoms, it's like, oh, better go back to the pelvic health therapist.
Right.
But um, we're so prudish here in Canada, and like we are so limited in what we do with our healthcare dollars. And yeah, most people don't even know that it's covered by their private benefits.
I
And
had no idea.
yeah, and like, listen, for most people, that doesn't get them far, but it's a
Right.
start, it's an assessment, it's a point of knowledge and education where
Mhm.
you can actually learn if this is something that's going to be helpful to you and that you want to invest in.
Well, and
So,
if there's something wrong, even if you don't have a lot of coverage or you just want to invest in it, then you get help and you have a plan. And if there's nothing wrong, you still learn something. Like you've opened your, I mean, I'm a big fan now having since, you know, wanting to, I've always advocated for my health, but then, it's one thing to do what I did in the endo field and have my surgeries and what have you. And then all of a sudden I had a full hysterectomy. And so I was in surgical menopause. I can't find there's little enough on peri and menopause. There's
ah,
almost nothing on surgical menopause. And so I just was dealing with all this stuff and I'm like, who is my team? And now my team is like 10 people. I pay for what I need to. I go where I need to. I travel because I don't want to feel like shit anymore.
yeah, yeah.
And part of it now is pelvic health, and you go and it's not just about having someone stick their fingers up your vagina. Like, it's like
Mhm.
but I mean, we've also there's like fear and things tied to that of just going and getting stirrups and like putting yourself in stirrups and having a pap smear.
Mhm.
And nobody really is talking to you or telling you what's happening. And then all of a sudden you get to go see a pelvic health specialist. And those of you who are doing it are incredible, and you learn
Yeah.
so much.
Well, I think and again, like, I think we're doing the best we can with our medical system here in
100%.
Canada. It's far from perfect, but the one thing that we have in the private setting, and I understand that I'm speaking from a position of privilege, assuming that
For sure.
people can afford that,
Agreed.
but we have taxed our public system so much that when you go see a doc, like, they have it feels like rushed
Mhm.
conversation. There was a great study that says the average length of a medical appointment is 5 to 7 minutes, and most people get interrupted at about 18 seconds in, by the attending physician, and it's not because they don't care. I've got incredibly compassionate colleagues out there who really wanna make a
Mhm.
difference, but when you walk into your office and you've got 60 to 80 people on your roster for the day,
Mhm.
it is really hard to listen to them fully, to get a great story, especially in something that feels sensitive and vulnerable. Like,
Mhm.
I find we take an hour with women
Yep.
and sometimes it's not until like 30 minutes where like something cracks open and that really important piece of information comes out. But it's because we've had the opportunity to build trust. It's because we've had the
Mhm.
opportunity to maybe cue them around things they haven't even thought about yet. And then they're like, oh, I've connected this dot to this dot. And we're like, well, there you go. Right.
Right.
But it's really hard. Like we talk a lot about women having agency over their bodies. It's really hard if we don't have the data and education for them to do that.
Yep.
And that's where I think we get into this mess of like, you see your doctor for 5 minutes and then you hop on social media and you start scrolling and you find what influencer A is talking about. And that becomes a much easier solution
Mhm.
than actually going to an appointment that feels vulnerable, investing in your care from there. And like it's no wonder people are so confused and not feeling like they're making gains in their health.
Well, and also because we went from no information to so much information to, women sharing their personal stories. Like, I'll share my endo story, but I don't, and my hysterectomy story, but I'm not a professional. I just know how I felt. And so I can recommend, when you have your hysterectomy, get yourself a coloring book, because by week 3, if you're anything like me, you're going to be losing your mind, right? But I
Yeah.
can't tell you what to do. And I just, as much as, like, I say, I don't want us to be memes. I don't want us to go from, like, no information to, information is just made up online. And yet, let's call it a year and a half that this has all become, bubbled to the top. It's still so new that there's no real education or research that's been done in that time. We're just talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, research takes time, and I'm so grateful that we are having these conversations, and I'm grateful that has become, part of central conversations that
Mhm.
people are having them over dinner. Like I said, like before, people would hear I'm a pelvic health therapist. They'd be like,
Mhm.
ask you a
Yeah.
question.
What is that?
What is happening?
It's my thing down there.
But now women are like, by the way, here's my like da 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 da, which so like I'm grateful for that. Um, but at the same time, like, we need to make sure that we have some guardrails around the
Mhm.
conversations that we're having. We need to make sure that they're evidence-based, and we need to make sure that they're individualized. To
Mm.
your point, your story is amazing because it enables conversations in other women, but your story is your story.
Mhm.
What you went through is not going to be the same as somebody else. And your family history is complex and your situational history is complex. So, all the things that worked for you might be a complete
Mhm.
detriment for somebody else. And, one of the things I see in clinic all the time is women come in and they're like, I don't know why I feel this like downward pelvic pain, or I feel like I'm leaking pee all the time. I'm doing my kegels. And I'm like, "Great, you're doing your Kegels. Has anybody checked that you should do your Kegels?" And
Mm.
I'm like, "Well, what do you mean?" And I'm like, "Well, when we looked on the pelvic floor, half of the population is weak and actually needs to do a Kegel to strengthen it up, but the other half of the population is actually tight, and they're having a different set of symptoms which feel very overlapping. But if you take a tight muscle and you tighten it even more, you're
Mm.
actually going to make the problem worse. Has
Right.
anybody checked? They're like, no. And it's kind of like, so you went in to like fix something in your car, but nobody looked under the hood. Or
Right.
you're
Well
drilling for
said.
cavities, but nobody actually took an x-ray. It's
Right.
the same idea, but somehow that part of the discourse hasn't landed yet.
Yeah, that's huge. That's pretty powerful. Like, that's like, there's a missing, so much missing, but there's a missing step, like, even right now in the immediacy of what we know. And, like, I'm an expert in my story, but I'm not an expert in endometriosis. I'm not an expert in surgical menopause. I'm an expert in my story.
Mhm.
You are an expert in pelvic health. Like, that's
You
like,
are.
I can tell all my friends, and I will continue to go see someone, this is why I'm going, and go figure out why you need to be there. But it's like, but I'm not an expert in what you
Yeah.
do.
But, like, even as an expert, like, listen, it's still challenging to
Mhm.
wade through this stuff.
For
I was
sure.
having all these symptoms, and I was, like, sure that I was perimenopausal. My hair was falling out, and, like, I was spending all this money on all this stuff because God, like, the minute your hair starts falling out, like, you're
Mhm.
like, "We will fix this, and we will fix this today."
Exactly.
And, all sorts of weird stuff, like, my eyes were feeling really dry, and, you know funky stuff. My sleep was disrupted,
Mhm.
and I went to go see my own doctor. I'm sure I'm in perimenopause. Of course, like, my mother hasn't shared anything about her history.
Right.
I don't know her journey. I'm 47, like, it feels right. Everybody's telling me this is kind
Mhm.
of the time frame for it, and my doctor says, "Hmm, yeah, sounds like you could be." I don't really know anything about it, so I'm gonna put you on a wait list to see an OB-GYN. Great. She referred me to my own gynecologist. That was in August of 2025. I still haven't heard back from them for an appointment. And there's a message on their answering machine that says, if you are calling to check about where your referral is, please understand that we will not have that discussion. We are too busy, essentially. So the average wait time right now is about 2 years to see a
Mhm.
gynecologist. So you have all these women who are in limbo, experts
Yep.
included,
Yep.
who are like freaking out in the meantime, spending like ridiculous amount. Like, you should see my bathroom. I have every type of hair densifying shampoo up there, all this stuff.
Right.
Um, and so finally I'm like, screw this. So I pay to join a concierge medical practice.
Mhm.
I'm like, I'm gonna get answers. And sure enough, I see a gynecologist within 2 weeks. We run labs, which we know aren't necessarily the be all and end all and often
Right.
tell us the right story. But she's like, your estradiol is like totally fine. Like you've got great levels. And like we tested a couple times and she's like, you probably are at the beginning stages, but by all accounts, she's like, wait a second, like, are you at the peak of your career? Like, is your career stressing you out? I'm like, "Mm, yeah, yeah. And like your kids are a certain age, like what age are your
Mhm.
parents?" I'm like, "Oh shit, I'm just stressed out."
Right.
Right? And I'm sure there's
Yep.
elements of perimenopause
For
there, but
sure.
the point I'm trying to make here is like even as experts, it is really hard to wade through all the information that's out there
Mhm.
and really pull like even I have all the tools to pull the evidence base, but to really take that and look at it through a strategic and clinical lens and apply it to your specific scenario. And like I needed the testing, I needed, you know, now I know to track my symptoms. Now I know how
Right.
to do this. I know how to do that. But I was in no position to self diagnose, but it is so very easy to do that because we've done a great job of marketing this conversation.
I think that is so powerful as well. Like you did a post a couple of weeks ago, and again, time just all blurs. It could have been 2 months ago, but
Mhm.
it stuck out for me where you're talking about like not everything is perimenopause, not everything is menopause, and things are being missed. And
Yeah.
we still have like we can't just be the catch-all. It's kind of like we went from they're in menopause, they're crazy, right? To now, they're in menopause, they're not crazy anymore. They're just dealing with 350,000 symptoms. But to your point, you had symptoms that are similar to perimenopause, but actually aren't and can be fixed and supported in a different way, potentially. And so now, are we waiting 2 years to get help with stress? Are we being diagnosed with stress and we need to see a gyne like, it's so much, but, to your point of tracking your symptoms, you know, that's where we have to start.
Yeah, and I think listen, we live in a society where popping an Advil is a lot easier than doing the
Mhm,
rehab exercises to strengthen your body, where,
mhm,
going on a crash diet for 6 weeks, although hard in the moment, is easier than actually eating well and consistently. So this falls
mhm,
within these lines is that when we don't give women the right information or the evidence-based information and it makes it hard for them to have agency over their body. The quick response can be like, "Okay, give me the HRT. You guys are all talking about
right.
HRT." Um, so I think it still is really important. The bottom line is when we do the hard work of those small, consistent, boring, pain in the butt things to do, whether you're in perimenopause or not, it actually improves your response to all of those things. So like sleeping 8 hours a night, like, I know it's really boring to say that, but sleeping 8 hours a night. I cut out alcohol 3 years ago. Listen, that's
Mhm,
my choice. I know it's not gonna be
mhm,
everybody's choice, but wow, do I feel a whole lot better not doing that.
mhm,
I know when I eat like crap, my skin is going to show that. Like, that's been the case since I was a teenager, but
right.
it almost becomes like it doesn't matter where you are on the continuum. If you're doing
Right.
those things, they're still gonna have benefit.
Right. And I think that's so important as well as, I'm training for life at this stage of the game. One of my girlfriends, Tamara Green, talks about being a life athlete. And I just love that, like being an athlete at life. And I'm just like, that just resonated. And, you know, athlete doesn't mean, I'm not running a marathon currently, but I'm paying attention to what's out there in terms of like, I'm going to do this strength training. I'm going to see the professionals. I'm going
Yeah.
to take some, you know, decide where I want it, like what I want to do and things like that. But like again, it's evidence based. It's like where, strength is a thing, walking is a thing, eating this way is a thing. And it is boring. And, I used to be life of the party. I'm still choosing to drink
Yeah.
alcohol a
Yeah. Yeah.
whole lot less than I used to
Yep.
by choice because I really like to feel good. Like I go to bed at 9:30 and my kids are always, they'll come upstairs and be like, Mom, it's 9:34. What's happening? And it's
I
like,
know.
because I also like early mornings. So I'm averaging about 7 hours, but I feel good majority of the day making those changes. And those are things we can do, to your point, but while we're waiting to see others. Like there's no harm in taking better care of ourselves. And I think we're finally surrounded by people and we want better for ourselves, which I don't know that we necessarily wanted 5, 10 years ago. We were being fed different information and we were in.
Yeah, I think the adoption of some of these things, like, would have met with a lot of resistance 5
Mhm.
years ago, and I do think and again, like, silver lining, I do think these conversations bring healthy lifestyle to the
Yes.
forefront. I think where public health is concerned here, I would still love people to get a little bit more curious
Agreed.
around this because I think it has the inverse effect where people are still saying, like, "You're
Mhm.
just getting old," like, don't worry, we all pee our pants at this
Yeah.
point in time. So I think I would love to see that adoption of more curiosity, more willingness to put in the work, more willingness to think, if I feel like this at 45 or 50,
Mhm.
how am I going to feel at 75 or 80? And have
Mhm.
that wake up call of, well, if I don't want to like see a downhill decline, now's the time to actually put some of those good habits into place.
Totally. Okay, so take let's just go like, rudimentary and take
Yeah.
some of that mystery out of it. I come in for like I finally have the courage to book an appointment to come and see a pelvic health specialist. Tell me about that appointment. Like let's take some of that
Yeah.
fear out of there. Like what happens?
For sure. So the first thing that alarms people is it's an hour long in length. And people are like, You're going to examine my vagina for an hour." No, I don't want to
No.
do that. You don't want to do that. Actually, a lot of it is spent talking, right?
Mhm.
I always say to patients, we are so annoying because we want to make sure that you feel comfortable, that we give this running narrative the whole time. And we ask for consent like 47
Mhm.
times during that appointment. But they're really check-ins with you throughout. So the first thing we do is get a really great subjective history. We talk about what your chief complaint is. We investigate those symptoms a little bit more. We'll often probe into things like your toileting habits, your
Mhm.
sexual habits, your nutrition, your hydration, all of those things, your sleep. I often joke with people that we're really good friends by the end of the subjective.
Yeah.
But that's where, 90% of our diagnosis is sort of pulled together from that subjective. It's like a puzzle. We're putting the pieces together.
Mhm.
But we also know that the gold standard for testing the strength, the contractility, how your nerves are supplying those muscles comes from an internal. That remains the gold standard for, I always get the question, people are like, can I just sit on the chair that vibrates? Like, doesn't that work? And my comment is we always have to really see what is going on. And I've been surprised in my career. Sometimes there have been people I'm like, oh, this person is totally going to present like this. And then we do the internal, and I'm like, oh, I was wrong. They're actually tight, not weak.
Mhm.
So for the internal, it's always your choice. I always say to our patients that you are 100% in the driver's seat, that
Mhm.
this is your hour. And if you're not comfortable with it, there's still a lot we can do externally, but we want that for that information piece.
Mhm.
And the other piece that's really important is the teaching aspect that comes with that. 50% of people who are doing Kegels aren't doing them properly. And it's because they've never been given the biofeedback to understand what muscles they're actually engaging. So
Mm-hmm.
when we do the internal, we do some observation, which is great because especially now that the standard for PAPS has been moved and it's been lengthened, and we're
Mm-hmm.
primarily doing the test for HPV,
Right.
3+ years, like assuming people stay on regular, like,
Mm-hmm.
listen, I had cervical cancer, like 3+ years for me feels really long.
Mm-hmm.
But that observation component is a great touch point for like, oh, this feels a little, this doesn't look right, or this might be something we want to, challenge. We are not doing any, we're not taking any samples, anything like
Mm-mm.
that. So that's still really important. I don't want to give the idea that it replaces that by any means. But we do the assessment. We look at what your muscle tone is like. Can you actually contract those muscles?
Mm-hmm.
Are they tight? Are they weak? What is the timing like? So for many people with pelvic floor, they'll say they sneeze and they leak a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
or like, they pick up into a run and like, oh shoot, And usually that's not that their muscles are weak, it's that the message coming from the brain and traveling down that neural pathway to the muscle is just lagging a little bit behind. So we check
Ooh.
that timing aspect of things. And
Hmm.
then while we're there, we'll usually either teach people how to contract their muscle as a starting point.
Mm-hmm.
Spend a lot of time teaching people how to breathe. Most of us don't breathe very well.
That was like, I'm interrupting because that was life changing for me when I met Lisa about a month and a half ago. There's anxiety with menopause and all those things. And I was like, I thought I was breathing well and I've done the yoga. And then she taught me, and I was like, this is life changing just to
I know,
breathe better.
right? It's so funny. It's like one of those points that we get so much resistance again. People are like, I'm paying $200 an hour and you're teaching me to breathe. But then they get in there and they're like, oh, like I was doing this all wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a great tool. It's a great tool for anybody who's got frequency. So
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the things that we see in menopause is your bladder tends to become, the threshold for firing can sometimes go down. So
Mm-hmm.
if anybody's ever found themselves like putting their key in the door and being like, "Oh my god, I have to go," or they hear their shower running in the morning and like you have to go, even just a couple properly done deep breaths slows that messaging from your brain to the muscles down and can get rid of some of that frequency and allow us to put you on a time schedule. So, yeah, the breathing
Wow.
piece of it is huge.
Yeah.
And we will also teach things like self massage.
Mm-hmm.
We will teach stretches. One of the things that people don't talk about very often is the sexual impact of menopause,
Mm-hmm.
or the sexual impact of pelvic floor health. And I can tell you the most rewarding patients to treat are the women who actually get excited about intimacy again. Or, the woman who breaks down in my office crying because she thought she was coming in because she had pain using menstrual products or things like that, and now realizes that this has created this, strange relationship around intimacy
Mm-hmm.
for herself or with a partner,
Mm-hmm.
and understanding that that's not her fault. It's actually her physiology. So, like, those are, to me, those are some of the coolest
Mm-hmm.
patients to treat. And then once we've done that, we sort of give you a synopsis of what is going on, and we lay out what treatment looks like,
Mm-hmm.
what you need to be doing at home, what is going to support treatment, how often we need to see you, and we set your goals. Like, everything is really personal. So, what are your goals? But I think when you have that information, pelvic floor physiotherapy is actually one of the most, it's got the highest degree of evidence of the field for a lot of cases. There's some really strong evidence to support it. And we can make a noticeable change in a couple of appointments.
Yeah, I can say that even from my own experience, like just, the trauma. I mean, I experienced trauma be having endo and then having, been told I like was okay and I wasn't okay and hysterectomy and all this and just learning nervous system and how even, pain. I mean, I had painful intercourse my entire life. And then I was still having it. And I'm like, but wait a second, I don't have any of those parts anymore. Like I was like, and then learning some, the breathing and the nervous system and the remembering of the trauma. And like, so even just working through those things, if I didn't, if I wasn't curious and went to see, I'd still be living in pain. And like my ultimate goal was to get out of pain. And so without trying everything, I wouldn't have. And like,
Well, and listen, endo's a whole other beast. I know you chatted to my
yeah.
really good friend Jill, who is such a wealth of information around
Hmm.
endo. But when we look at menopause separate from that, without even layering
Hmm.
endo on, roughly 4% of women have some pelvic floor symptoms under that branch of genitourinary syndrome
Hmm.
in perimenopause, but it's progressive. And by 3 years post-menopause, 80 to 84% of women have some aspect of GSM. And so what people don't realize is that it's treatable.
Right.
And so we have all these women who are like, oh, it's just my libido's down because of menopause, but it's, your tissue fragility. It's, muscles actually not
Hmm.
working properly anymore. I have women who don't realize that the pH actually changes. And so, like, they're ashamed of it because their microbiome is making something smell a little bit different. Like, all of these things we can fix, like,
Right.
or not fix, but we can create solutions for them so people can actually enjoy themselves beyond the menopause years.
And I think there's so much to be said about just knowing you're okay. Like just knowing that, well, these things need treatment or care or a professional, you're not alone.
Yeah.
And again, all our stories are, we're complex individuals. But, one thing now to be a part of this like menopausal group or like, so you've got the larger group and then you find the smaller places, that you belong. But just to have someone listen, like just to, when I went and met with Lisa, because I'm up north, otherwise I'd be in your clinic. Um, it just I didn't even expect that. I literally expected in my brain, not knowing much, I was like, "I'm just gonna lay on a thing and I'm gonna be thrown in stirrups, and she's gonna put her fingers in my vagina." And I was like, "Why is she asking me to stand? Like, why is she asking me questions? Why is she asking me to touch my toes?" It was this unbelievable moment of just being heard and cared for,
Yeah.
and it was not at all what I expected, and it was, you know, life-changing
Yeah. And
in such a different way.
I'm so glad you had that experience. I think one of the biggest phrases that I hear in pelvic health, and I'm never sure whether I love it or hate it, is, oh, this is common, right? Like, this is
Mm,
common. And I don't like it because common doesn't necessarily mean that it's normal, but
right,
common gives women a permission slip to not investigate further. Oh, my
right.
mom had this. All my girlfriends have this, right? So I think we really need to bring it at that point that it's common, but you also don't have to deal with it, right? Like, there's a
Right.
lot we can do, and that can feel really empowering because when we just assume that our bodies were built to go through this, like,
Right.
degradation, so to speak, and it really takes away, I keep using the word agency, but it takes away our choice.
Mhm.
It takes away our choice in how we wanna feel and what work we wanna put in to feel differently.
Yeah. And agreed. And if I can I just go to a pelvic health special like, can I just go to you? I may not have any symptoms of anything. Can I just like, does something have to be wrong or can I be proactive and come in and see you?
Yeah, I would love for women to be proactive. Some of them are,
Mhm.
um, and I think we could probably generally say this in anything in
Right.
healthcare. Like, the more proactive you are, the less likely you are going to end up in my office at a later time,
Right.
or the less intensive that treatment needs to be. I think your public health exam gives you a ton of information. And because we're not used to talking about these things, because we're not generally self evaluating or looking at these muscles, and because it's not like your bicep, right? It is a muscle, it contracts, but your bicep, you can very easily, you can touch it, you can see it, you feel the engagement of it. Most of us are very disassociated with our pelvic floor.
Mhm.
especially if there's been a history of trauma, um, you know, if there's a mindset of shame around it or
Hmm.
embarrassment, we tend to disassociate and not pay attention. So it's a great educational experience. So
Hmm.
anybody can come in. I would suggest, especially at different periods of life, different milestones, it's great to come in and get checked out.
Hmm.
You know, most cases will probably say, "Hey, you're great. Let me give you a couple of
Hmm.
exercises that might really help. Let me show you some self release techniques or some stretches or some breathing and nervous system techniques that will be really helpful in keeping it in great shape." And super, like you can go off. Like, I also think there's this misconception in private healthcare that if you come in to see us, I'm going to be like, well, you are coming in 3 times a week for the
Right.
rest of your life. Like, that car that you wanted to buy, put it on hold because
Right.
here you are. And listen, success for us means discharging patients.
I love
I
that.
don't want patients who are dependent on us. I want to give patients the tools to independently manage their health care. So
Hmm.
if you come in and you look great, I'm going to tell you that and like send you on your way with some great recommendations. So I think if
Yep.
nothing else, from an education standpoint, it's great. And if you do need help, we can formulate what that looks like in something that's reasonable for your stage of life and
Right.
your particular life situation.
And sooner than later, I mean, I find for myself and so many of the people I'm talking to is like, oh, I wish I did that 2 years ago. And that is so a part of what I'm hoping to do with what I'm doing and leading the way in my, small part of this and bringing awareness to the things that I've chosen to learn about. And so even if, my whole thing is if someone listens and one person does something and finds, then I've done my job. Because if I didn't do this or didn't have introduced people to you in this way, um, or a new train of thought, then they may not have gotten help. And so it's taking the taboo out of it. It's I'm happy to be the guinea pig or whatever it needs to be because I just want women to feel better and know they can.
Well, and these conversations are so, so important because as much as we want to condemn influencers out there for sharing their health story and their health opinions, if the rest of us are not out there disseminating quality information, there's
Mhm.
no counterbalance there, right? So you can be pissed
Agreed.
off that so and so told you to go buy this, but if you're not willing to show up and have the conversation, then like where are the checks and balances in this? So I really do believe the more conversations that we have, the better information is going to rise to the top. And listen, people are smart, right? If you give them a whole host of information, they're going to start to be able to pick out what is the credentialed information and what's the evidence base, and they'll do their homework. So
Mhm.
we just need to have more of it out there.
Agreed. Agreed. I think well, I know we could talk forever. We could there's so much. You are a wealth of information. The clinic you have built is such a beautiful place for people to go to. How can people get in touch with you after they listen to this? How can they reach out?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you are in the Toronto area, we are in West Toronto, just north of High Park. You're welcome to check out our services. You can find us online at bodycotoronto.com. And if you're not, still feel free to keep that information because
Mhm.
we have a really strong network across Canada and the US. And we'd
Cool.
be happy to make a recommendation of another practitioner who meets sort of our standards of excellence that
Mm.
we demand of our practitioners. So whether it's, up north, whether it's somewhere
Mhm.
else, we can probably connect you with a great resource to start getting care.
Awesome.
The other thing I will say is we give away tons of free information.
Mhm.
We write a great blog. Our practitioners are online all the time because they kind of believe, you do have to do exactly what I said and put your money where your mouth is
Mhm.
and show up for your business. So even following us on Instagram at BodyCo Toronto. Again, lots of free information. We shout out a lot of people there. And it's a great way, even if you're just curious, to
Mhm.
understand a little bit more of what this type of healthcare is about.
Absolutely. Amazing. I know people are going to look for you. I love following you. I love everything that you're doing. And I'm so grateful that you invested your time with us today. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. It was a delight, and best of luck with everything that you're doing this
Thanks.
fall. It's super important, and I am so grateful for you for being that champion of women's health. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for getting loud with us today on the Down There Where podcast. If this conversation resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to hear it, subscribe so you never, ever miss an episode, and leave us a review. It would help us reach more women who've been told to suffer in silence. And here's the thing, awareness isn't enough. We need action, we need funding, we need change. That's where the Down There Affair comes in. We're a global peer-to-peer fundraising movement putting menstrual health center stage, from menstruation to menopause and everything in between. Diseases affecting men receive twice the funding of those affecting women. Only 11% of research dollars go to women's health. We're here to change that. Visit downtherewhere.org to register for our next walk, start fundraising, or join the movement. We can't do this alone. Oh, and follow us on social at the Down There Affair, because this conversation doesn't stop when the episode ends. Whether you're dealing with your own health journey, supporting someone who is, or ready to demand the care we all deserve, you're in the right place. Getting uncomfortable is where change happens, and we're never going back. I'm Amy Milne. Stay loud.
Oh, that was binge-worthy.